What if everything you've been taught about discipline was merely a shadow of its true potential? What if genuine, world-altering discipline had nothing to do with comfort, convenience, or social acceptance, but instead demanded a transformation so radical, so complete, that your very character would be remade in a forge of your own will? What if the key to achieving the extraordinary, to reaching heights that seem almost mythical, was to cultivate a level of personal rigor so intense that the average person, bound by their comforts and compromises, would look upon your habits and routines and genuinely perceive them as a form of madness? 400 years ago, in an era defined by the clash of steel and the code of the warrior, the legendary and undefeated swordsman Miyamoto Musashi did more than just win duels. He codified the very essence of this radical transformation. In his timeless strategic masterpiece, The Book of Five Rings, he laid out a path not to fleeting fame or temporary wealth, but to something far more permanent and profound: absolute mastery. He wasn't writing for the masses seeking quick fixes. He was writing for the singular individual willing to embark on the ultimate journey of self-conquest. Today, we take his ancient, battle-tested wisdom and adapt these 5 elemental rings into a comprehensive, modern system designed for one purpose only: to guide you toward a state of radical self-mastery that will separate you from the world of the ordinary. The entire journey, the foundation upon which every future victory is built, begins with the Ring of Earth. This is the principle of brutal, unflinching self-honesty, the bedrock of all true strength. Consider the pivotal moment after Musashi's legendary duel with his archrival, Sasaki Kojiro. He emerged victorious, but his immediate reaction was not celebration, not boasting, not basking in the glory of his conquest. Instead, in the quiet aftermath, he turned his gaze inward. He meticulously analyzed his own weaknesses, the flaws in his technique, the moments of hesitation, the gaps in his strategy that the intense pressure of combat had revealed. He understood on a visceral level that true, unshakable strength does not come from ignoring your frailties, but from knowing your ground with absolute, almost painful, clarity. This means having the courage to map the entire terrain of your being, your inherent limitations, your deepest character flaws, your hidden fears, and perhaps most importantly, the subtle, insidious ways you waste your most precious resource, your time. It demands that you stop telling yourself comforting stories and start confronting the unvarnished truth of who you are and where you stand right now. Consider this staggering reality. The vast majority of people, despite being technically busy for 8, 10, or even 12 hours a day, are genuinely, deeply productive for a mere 2 to 3 hours. The rest of that precious time, those countless hours of potential progress and creation, is systematically stolen, siphoned away by a relentless army of distractions, trivial pursuits, and the silent thief of mental fragmentation. This is not an accusation. It is a statistical probability, a pattern observed in study after study of human work habits. The Ring of Earth, in its uncompromising demand for truth, forces us to confront this directly. It commands that we become forensic accountants of our own lives, tracking our time with a level of ruthless honesty that can feel uncomfortable, even painful. You must embark on a meticulous audit. Where do your hours truly go? Not where you hope they go, or where you tell others they go, but where the immutable data shows they actually disappear. Is it the endless scroll through social media, masquerading as a mental break? Is it the labyrinth of unnecessary meetings that could have been an email? Is it the constant context switching that leaves you feeling busy but accomplishing little of substance? More importantly, you must probe deeper into the psychological underpinnings. What specific weaknesses in your character, your environment, or your habits act as energy vampires, draining your focus and your willpower? Are you prone to procrastination when faced with a difficult task? Do you lack the ability to say no? thus filling your schedule with the priorities of others? The Ring of Earth offers no comfort, only clarity. Its fundamental, non-negotiable law is this: you must learn to see reality exactly as it is, in all its stark, unflattering detail, not as you wish, hope, or fear it to be. This clear-eyed vision is the only solid ground upon which you can build anything of lasting value. Once you have achieved this clear-eyed vision of your current reality, once you have mapped the rocky, unforgiving terrain of your present self with the unflinching honesty of the Ring of Earth, the next stage of the journey unfolds through the Ring of Water. This principle teaches the profound art of adaptation. The philosophy here is not one of brutal, head-on confrontation with every obstacle. A river does not attempt to smash through the mountain. It does not waste its energy raging against the immovable rock. Instead, with infinite patience and relentless persistence, the water flows around it, finds a crevice, wears it down over time, or simply changes its course, always moving inevitably toward its goal. Musashi embodied this fluid intelligence. He understood that massive, sustainable change in one's character and capabilities almost never begins with dramatic, unsustainable leaps. It begins with microscopic, almost imperceptible adjustments that bypass the ego's resistance. The application for you is direct and practical. Do you wish to become an early riser? The water principle dictates you do not attempt to jump from waking at 8 a.m. to 4 a.m. in a single, brutal day, a strategy that almost guarantees failure and burnout. Instead, you adapt. You wake just 30 minutes earlier, not 3 hours. You master that new rhythm until it becomes effortless, and only then do you adjust further. Do you aspire to supreme physical fitness? The Ring of Water advises against vowing to complete a 2-hour workout on your first day, a vow that often leads to injury and demoralization. Instead, you flow. You commit to 10 perfect push-ups today. You take a 15-minute walk. You focus on the consistency of the action, not the scale. The water's way is one of supreme intelligence and economy of effort. It does not force. It finds the path of least resistance that still leads directly to its objective. Your discipline, therefore, should mirror this natural wisdom. It should be flexible, responsive, and intelligent, not rigid, brittle, and ego-driven. It is about making progress inevitable through small, daily, adaptable actions that accumulate into a transformative force. It is a deeply human, almost instinctive reaction when you witness the success of others, their achievements, their accolades, their visible progress. A familiar, bitter heat might rise within you. We call this envy, and conventional wisdom tells us to suppress it, to feel guilty for it, or to simply ignore it. But the Ring of Fire presents a radical alternative. Do not extinguish this emotional spark. Instead, master the art of redirecting its intense energy inward. See this not as a negative emotion to be condemned, but as a potent, untapped source of fuel. Miyamoto Musashi was a master of this psychological alchemy. In the face of rivals or witnessing superior technique, he did not allow his anger to fester into resentment or spite directed outward. He consciously harnessed that raw, emotional charge and turned its focused intensity against his own limitations. The very existence of someone better, someone more skilled, became a living mirror reflecting his own inadequacies, and he used the heat of that uncomfortable realization to forge himself anew. To implement this transformative principle, you must create a non-negotiable daily ritual of conscious confrontation. Each morning, as a sacred act of self-honesty, you will take a blank page and list your current weaknesses, not in a spirit of self-flagellation, but with the dispassionate eye of a strategist assessing a battlefield. Acknowledge without sugarcoating where you are currently failing. Is it a lack of consistency in your work? A skill you have neglected to develop? A character flaw like impatience or a tendency to complain? Then, you perform the crucial act of transmutation. You transform each identified failure into a specific, actionable step for the day. That failure of procrastination on a key project becomes the action. I will work on this project for 25 uninterrupted minutes at 10 a.m. That flaw of physical lethargy becomes, I will perform one set of push-ups to failure before lunch. And that jealousy you feel scrolling through social media or looking at a colleague's success, that is your kindling. Do not let it consume you with bitterness. Let it instead burn away your complacency. Let it incinerate the excuses you tell yourself. This is what it means to wield productive rage, a focused, burning determination to close the gap between who you are and who you are capable of becoming. It is the sacred fire that forges incrementally better versions of ourselves, day by day. However, after you have tasted success, after you have built momentum and begun to see tangible results from this disciplined approach, a new and far more insidious enemy emerges, the quiet, seductive whisper of stagnation. This is where the ring of wind issues its critical warning. Complacency is the rust that corrodes the blade of mastery. Miyamoto Musashi, despite being undefeated in over 60 duels and widely regarded as Japan's greatest swordsman, never succumbed to this trap. His ultimate strength lay not in his perfected technique, but in his perpetual state of being a student. Even at the peak of his prowess, he actively sought out and studied other schools of strategy, other weapons, and other philosophical traditions. He understood that mastery is not a summit you reach and then set up camp upon. It is a continuous, ever-ascending path. He remained a voracious learner, deliberately placing himself in the humble position of a novice to ensure his mind remained sharp, adaptable, and, most importantly, open. The moment you believe you have arrived, the moment you start to believe your current knowledge and methods are sufficient, is the precise moment you begin your inevitable decline. The wind never stops moving, and neither should the seeker of true mastery. To actively combat the creeping disease of complacency, you must institutionalize a practice of deliberate humility. Implement what can be called the monthly challenge, a structured ritual where, every 30 days, you deliberately and systematically study someone who is demonstrably better than you in a relevant domain. This is not a passive, casual observation, but an active, deep dissection of their methods, their mindset, their work ethic, and their achievements. The explicit goal of this exercise is to feel a sense of inadequacy on purpose. You are to lean into the discomfort of recognizing the vast gap that still exists between their mastery and your current state. This feeling of being a beginner again is not a sign of failure. It is the most reliable indicator that you are still growing, still reaching, and still on the path. This practice relentlessly reinforces the core tenet that mastery is not a distant destination you finally reach, a trophy to be placed on a shelf and admired. It is a state of continuous movement, an endless process of becoming. The very instant you entertain the thought, I have arrived, the very moment you believe your current understanding is sufficient, you have already initiated your own decline. The mind, like a muscle, begins to atrophy the second it stops being challenged. The Ring of Wind teaches that true strength is maintained not by resting on past victories, but by constantly seeking out new winds that will test your stability and force you to grow stronger roots. And this brings us to the ultimate, most profound, and often most difficult ring to embrace, the Ring of the Void. This ring does not offer a new technique or a clever strategy. Instead, it contains the hardest, most liberating truth you will ever confront about the nature of true discipline. It never, ever gets easier. There is no magical future point where the alarm clock becomes a joy to hear, where procrastination loses its pull, or where focused work requires no mental effort. There is no finish line. This realization can be crushing to the ego that embarked on this journey, hoping for an eventual end to the struggle. But the void is not a symbol of emptiness or despair. It is the spacious, silent ground of total and complete acceptance. It is the psychological space where you stop fighting the fundamental nature of the path itself. This is where your questions must undergo a radical transformation. You must cease asking the desperate, future-focused question, when will this finally get easier? This question comes from a place of resistance, from a hope that the burden will one day be lifted. Instead, you must replace it with the present moment, action-oriented question. What specific battle must I fight today? This shifts your focus from a passive longing for an easier future to an active engagement with the present challenge. This is the essence of the warrior's spirit that Musashi embodied. He did not paint beautiful sumi-e ink wash paintings because he expected to become a famous artist. He painted because the act of painting cultivated patience, perception, and a calm mind, qualities essential to a warrior. He practiced calligraphy not for the result of beautiful characters, but because the discipline of the brush refined his focus and control. He did these things because this is what warriors do. The activities themselves were not the goal. They were expressions of his nature. This is the final integration. The struggle ceases to be something external that you endure and becomes intrinsic to your very being. The daily tracking of time, the early mornings, the constant learning, the embrace of discomfort. This is not a temporary phase you are going through, not a challenge with a set end date. This is who you are. The ring of the void is the acceptance that the path and the traveler have become one. The disciplined life is not something you do, it is what you are. This is the fundamental point where nearly everyone misunderstands the true nature of profound discipline. Most people approach it with a transactional mindset. They see it as a temporary bridge, a difficult but finite period of struggle they must cross to eventually arrive at a life of ease, comfort, and permanent relaxation. They believe discipline is the price they pay once to then live off the interest forever. This is a beautiful, comforting, and utterly false narrative. True, transformative discipline is not a bridge to an easy life. It is the conscious, deliberate decision to stop seeking an easy life altogether. It is the choice to make struggle your permanent home, to find a sense of belonging not in the absence of challenge, but in the very act of overcoming it. It is about rewiring your nervous system and recalibrating your mind to become so profoundly comfortable with daily discomfort, with the strain of effort, the sting of failure, the ache of growth, that your level of commitment, when viewed from the outside, appears irrational, extreme, and even insane to those who still cling to the myth of comfort. When they see you wake up at 5 a.m. while they hit snooze, when they see you decline distractions they readily accept, when they see you relentlessly track your progress and audit your weaknesses, they won't see a person on a journey. They will see a person who has chosen a different reality, and that will seem like a form of madness to them. The 5 rings of Musashi's wisdom are not just steps. They are a complete ecosystem for the soul. Earth, water, fire, wind, and void. Each represents a layer of understanding you must integrate into your being. The question placed before you now is not a matter of simple capability. It is not, can you achieve extreme discipline? The raw potential for it exists within every human being. The real, defining question that separates the dreamer from the warrior is far more demanding. Are you ready to formally declare a war against your weaker self that you know, with absolute certainty, will never end? Are you prepared to enlist in a lifelong campaign where there are no permanent victories, only daily battles? Are you willing to sign a contract with your own potential that has no termination clause, where the only breach is surrender to mediocrity? Your personal journey toward becoming what others would call crazy disciplined does not require a grand, heroic, all-or-nothing leap. It starts with the simplest, most humble, yet most courageous of beginnings. It starts with one brutally honest assessment of where you are right now, the ring of earth. It starts with one small, intelligent adaptation to a single obstacle in your path, The ring of water. It starts with taking one single wave of a negative emotion, like envy or anger, and redirecting its immense energy inward to fuel one positive action. The ring of fire. These rings are not separate. They build upon each other, creating a compound effect that forges an unbreakable will. You do not need to master the void on day one. You simply need to start with the earth. Today, not tomorrow, not next Monday, not on the first of the month. The ground beneath your feet is waiting for your inspection. If this path of relentless self-mastery calls to you, if you're ready to build a mindset that separates you from the ordinary, your next steps are clear. 1. Smash the like button. This tells YouTube's algorithm that this is more than just entertainment. It's a manual for transformation. Your click helps guide other seekers to this path, building a community dedicated to real growth, not just passive consumption. 2. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Consider this your official enlistment. The war for your best self is fought daily, and we are your strategic command. By subscribing, you ensure you get every new tactic, every deep dive into ancient wisdom, and every tool you need to win your daily battles. We're just getting started on this campaign, and the most powerful strategies are still to come. The 5 rings are your map. Now it's time to take the first step. Subscribe and begin the journey.